Is anyone unhappy with recording? If we're all fine, then we'll go ahead. So Joe is going to be presenting, as I had mentioned in the email, on some of the stuff he's been using and he's really been happy with. Hopefully he'll tell us also a little bit of some of the things he hasn't been happy with. And then we'll have Jen go, and then I'll finish off with some mushy stuff. Okay. Joe, take it away.
How long do I have?
10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. So first of all, despite the public health crisis aspect of this, I have to say that I found working at home very nice. I found that my workplace stress level went down a lot, and I got to play with some interesting tools that I didn't even know existed. In particular, I'm talking about the ease with which Zoom appears to integrate with all of my Apple devices. And I'll warn you in advance, I'm a huge Apple person. And I'm sure that it integrates with, other things as well. But I'm really pleased with the screen sharing and whiteboarding capabilities in Zoom. So I'm going to share my iPad screen. And I'm going to show you some of the apps that I've been using. And once in a while, there is a glitch where the screen that I'm sharing stops updating. So if I start talking about something and you don't see anything happening on the screen, just let me know. I'm assuming you can all see my screen now. Okay. The first app that I would like to show you is one called Vidal Pro. And unfortunately, none of the apps that I'm going to show you are free. But I went ahead and paid for them because I use them for other purposes. This app, Vidal Pro, has essentially replaced paper and pencil for me. And you can see that I've got some stuff here going back probably 2 years. I haven't really looked through the dates in a while. But this is my new notepad. And it's a very, very robust app. I use an Apple Pencil, and I can write and draw in real time. And this is just 1/4 of the virtual page that I have available to me. So there's a lot of space there. And the cool thing is if I run out of space, I can open up a brand new page. And I can do this, as far as I know, there is no built-in limit. Of course, you're limited by the device's memory. But the cool thing is I can just create pages and pages of material. Here's a problem that I worked out in real time with my students. Well, last week, as a matter of fact. This is problem 40 out of chapter 11 of Matter and Interactions. It's a rotational inertia problem. And I can do this in real time. And if I'm recording this in Zoom, it's very much like being in a classroom. Now, here's the part that really makes this cool, and that is that participants can annotate my screen. If you go up into the sharing bar, which is sometimes hard to find for me, it plays peekaboo with me, but if you go up into the sharing bar, and it should be just above where you see Joe Hefner is sharing his screen or something similar. There should be a button there called Annotate. You should be able to click on that button, and I'm going to let you experiment with this now. Go ahead and mark up my diagram, because I can erase everything that you typed there. I think. I know I can do it if I'm a host. I'm not sure if I can do it from my screen. I think I can. But the cool thing is, instead of students saying, hey, right there in that equation, you missed a sign. Yeah, there you go. They can annotate the screen and say, oh, you used the wrong variable for torque, or what does that symbol, tau sub A, stand for there? And they can pinpoint exactly what it is that they have a question about. And then I can come along and I can do that, and I can make it all go away. And of course, if this is being recorded, oh, somebody's doing it again there. If this is being recorded, this is all captured in the Zoom recording. And at the end of the recording, if students want a record of all this, I can come back to Viddle Pro and I can export everything as a big multi-page PDF file. And I can then upload that to whatever learning management system I'm using, or I can email it to the students or share it in the chat room. That's something else that I discovered about Zoom. Are you aware that you can share files in the chat room? This requires version 5 or later. And you can send files. There is a catch in that if somebody comes in late after you have first sent the file, they will not be able to see it because their chat room will pick up with where they come into the room, and you'll have to resend the link. But you can actually do simple file transfers through the chat mechanism in Zoom. I didn't know about that. So I'm going to clear all that away and see my original stays perfectly intact. And I see Glinda is moving the arrow around there. That arrow was really, really cool. Students liked that as well.
Joel, can you talk a little bit about the record option? I see a REC, I assume.
Yes, yes, I'm glad you said that, because Viddle Pro will let you capture audio as well. And I'm going to post a link in the chat if I can find it. It's under more. There we go. Okay, I'm now going to post a link. Let me get rid of that bar right there. And this is to my YouTube channel. And you will see a video that I posted 3 years ago that was done entirely with Viddle Pro. And it's just a little physics exercise that I did there. But it was done basically as a proof of concept with Viddle Pro. So I can tap that recording and it will capture my writing in real time, and it will capture the audio, and with just a couple clicks, I can automatically upload the resulting video to a YouTube account. Very, very cool to do.
Can I interrupt for a second with a question?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm seeing you, and then you said you used your iPad to share with the screen, so you're able to, I guess I'm confused as to how Zoom can show you on the computer, and also your iPad is connecting to that same Zoom account at the same time, and how you're doing that.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't want the coding details. I want to know, how did you tell it to do that, and it did it? Because I've tried that and it hasn't worked. Are
you referring to my video preview that you can see?
No, right now I can see you talking to me. You got your hat, your baseball cap on, and then
that's
you said,
Zoom doing that.
Yeah, and then you said, here's my iPad, and where did that? How does Zoom let you use 2 devices at the same time at the same session?
When you share a screen, your video doesn't go away.
But the video, I'm assuming, so the video is coming from your computer, but or are you looking at your iPad right now when I see you?
This screen right here, the screen is my iPad screen. That's just being shared over a USB.
No, I mean, but if I look at the top of my screen, I see you with your hand on your chin. Is that camera recording you with your hand on your chin coming from your iPad?
That's my cam in my iMac. Yes.
Okay, so the iMac is looking at you physically.
Yes.
But how are you able to share the iPad?
USB.
So you plug the iPad into your computer?
Yes, and it also does it with AirPlay, so I can do it without the cable as well. But right now I've got it on cable. It tends to be a little more stable with me. I've found that sometimes the AirPlay would stop working for whatever reason. So I just decided to use the USB cable today.
I mean, I've tried that, and I had to log in separately into Zoom on my iPad, and it created all kinds of issues. I'm not sure what you're doing that's different, I guess, but that's okay.
When you hit share screen, or share rather, there's one option that's specifically for iPads. And you click on that one, and then you have to go to your iPad and you start mirroring, and it will connect directly to your Zoom.
If you do AirPlay, yes. Now with the USB cable, I didn't have to initiate anything on the iPad.
Okay.
So yeah, that's why I say this integration with the iPad ecosystem, I don't know how it works, couldn't tell you. I just know it works, and I just think it's really cool. So how much does Viddle cost? I think it's in the neighborhood of $20. Okay, I see Anthony put the link there. Now you can get a free version, but I went ahead and got the pro version because, like I said, this is my new paper and pencil that I take around with me, and it will run on an iPhone. However, it does not use iCloud for syncing. So any drawings that you create on your iPad stay on your iPad, and any drawings that you create on your iPhone stay on your iPhone. They don't talk to each other via iCloud. That's the one drawback that I see here.
Joe, I just want to mention, this is Shahida. I use Doceri, and that does similar thing, audio recording and writing, and it's very similar to Whittle Pro.
Okay. Yeah, and they're
and Doceri is free, by the way.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
I'll type it in. Sorry, Glenn.
Yes, please do provide that link, because I'm always looking for something else to use. I spend as much time with these note-taking apps as I do pretty much anything else. Okay, I recognize that name. Yes.
Thank you.
And there's one called, oh gosh, Explain Everything, I believe is the name for it.
It's really good. Explain Everything.
And Notability, okay. And I was just about to show Notability, because Notability can do one thing that Viddle Pro cannot do, and that is Notability. I had all these queued up here. I like the fact that Notability does handwriting recognition. This is some text that I had scribbled on here with my Apple Pencil, and you go through a very simple sequence. You highlight and then you simply tap convert to text, and it does this. But there's something else about this that I really like, and that is when you're drawing, you can actually force it, except when other people are watching, of course. You can actually force it to make circles that snap into actual circles. And of course, it's not working now. Let me bring up a new page. And I usually work with a background grid of some sort. So let me
do the same.
A new page here. And now, of course, you can, draw circles freehand, but I really like the fact that you can, and for some reason it's not doing it. It worked in rehearsal, I swear, but it will actually
if you draw and hold it.
Yeah, you have to
hold it there.
Yeah, it usually snaps into a straight line. Oh, well, modern technology. But then the cool thing is you can select that arrow and move it around the page, and it becomes very helpful for manipulating vectors. You can very easily show graphical addition of vectors, and you can duplicate this, and you can move these around and show the geometrical aspects of vectors, and I found that very useful. Although I didn't use this in my own classes yet, I stayed for consistency, I stayed with Viddle Pro, but that's one thing that I like about Notability. And I had about 3 or 4 students in my mechanics class already using Notability on an iPad at the beginning of the semester. So I'm going to start working it into my workflow as well. Somebody had a question.
One quick feature I discovered last night: if you do what you just did, you circle around something and use a style, you can change the color of what you had drawn, and you can convert it from black to anything you want. So if you go ahead and circle it around, and then click on this, there's the menu that shows up, and you click on style. You can resize the pencil. So click on So the first option there, style. You can change the color. You can change the size of the pencil, and make it.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, without having to read. So when you have a complex drawing, you may want to sometimes say, "Oh, I wish this part was blue instead of red."
And you can mix your own colors too,
Yeah.
the color palette there.
Does it record your, can you record with the Notability and have it record your voice while you're drawing and
There is a
explaining?
microphone icon down here, so I assume you can. I have not experimented with that. Kareem, you might.
Yeah, you can do it. But I usually like the simple recording that the iPad provides anyway with by default. And
screen recording is an option in the control center now.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, there's the button right here.
Yeah, and you can even set up an external mic to it, and it works pretty nicely.
Joe, I have a question about. I actually ran into what Theo was saying, and I use Notability a lot, and then I tried to record while I'm doing this, and the files don't come together. They come separately. So the audio file comes in separate from the other file. So did anyone manage to put those together or figure out?
Well, I can tell you what I do. I use the recording from the iPad, and I end up with a video that includes my writing and my audio, and then I upload that on my computer, and I post it on Canvas or whatever. You can do whatever. In fact, I edit that further into because I have Camtasia. I do more editing and cleanup and voiceover, whatever you want to do. But yeah, I get it as a full video with both the drawing. I mean, the writing, the drawing, and all the audio, all in sync. But I use the recording from the iPad, not from Notability.
Oh, recording from the iPad, I see. Okay.
Using the screen capture capability.
Yeah, the screen capture from the iPad.
Oh, okay.
And the sound quality is pretty good, but you can also...
Screencast-O-Matic will also capture any screen, whether it's an iPad or a tablet or a laptop, desktop, very easily with very clear sound as well.
Thank you.
And Anthony over in the chat room says that he thinks that the Notability native recordings are probably in some sort of proprietary format. And that might account for some of the difficulties that you experienced. I'll be honest, I really haven't experimented much with Notability, so I'm not sure, but that's something that I can certainly look into. It's a great tool, and I found that a lot of students use it. And I tweeted them, asked them if they were planning on adding mathematical notation to the handwriting capability, and they kind of said, yeah, it's on our radar. So that would be another feature that, if students could write an equation and highlight it, and suddenly it looks like it was done in LaTeX or something like that. And let's see, I don't know how I'm doing on time here, but there was one other thing that I wanted to show, and that was a grading workflow. And for this, I stumbled across a wonderful PDF annotation package called Liquid Text. I used to use one called PDF Expert, but I abandoned it because they switched to a nasty subscription model for the same features. So I found Liquid Text. It's $29, but again, this is something that I use all the time. And what I do with this is I use it to mark up the PDF files that students send me as homework solutions. And they generate these in LaTeX using Overleaf and a special package that I created called Mandy, M-A-N-D-I, which derives from matter and interactions, although it can be used independently of that. So they have a document template that they use, and they simply fill in the steps. And the cool thing about this, and here's where the computation comes in one command, they can import the source code from either a VPython or GlowScript program. And notice that they get syntax highlighting, and they get line numbering, so it makes it very easy for me to look at. But down here at the bottom, they can include a link, and I can tap on that, and it will take me to GlowScript, and there is their program. Boom. The fact that this works just blows my mind. But there it is. Now, of course, this is a read-only thing, but I can always go back to the PDF file, which is still waiting for me back here. And I can then mark this up with my Apple Pencil, and I can never remember to hit the edit button there. I can mark this up with my pencil, and I can just shoot this back in an email to them. I can literally mark up a problem in 5 minutes and send it back to them. The template that I give them automatically produces a list of figures. It automatically handles all the labeling for them. And the students tell me that this is a huge benefit to them. The students who have transferred, most of our students go to either NC State or UNC Charlotte. They tell me that their ability to use LaTeX impresses their professors, and their other students come to them and say, hey, can you teach me how to do this as well? So this is my standard grading workflow in my calc-based physics courses. And the students seem to like it. I'm going to spend some time over the summer restructuring the documentation, because guess what? Students aren't reading the documentation. So I've got to restructure it a little bit to make it a little more enticing for them to read. But it's a fairly robust package. And if you go to my blog, which I will put over in the chat area, you can download the source code for Mandy. It's also on CTAN. But they use this in conjunction with Overleaf, which is an online LaTeX portal. And so my physics class was actually very well prepared for the move to online, because we were using a lot of online resources anyway. It's just now there was a bigger incentive to do it since we weren't meeting in person. And I guess that concludes the formal part of my part of this. And you know, we can field questions after. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Jen now.
Do you guys have any quick questions for Joe?
Just a quick one, Joe. Do you spend any time teaching them LaTeX?
I do. We spend, I'm trying to think of it in terms of hours, maybe 4 or 5 hours practicing. We start out with just some very simple things like how do you get mathematical notation versus text. And then I start showing them the shortcuts that I've invented for them in Mandy. For example, they never have to worry about the units of a quantity, because in the package, there is a command for every physical quantity defined in the textbook, and they never have to remember the units. And Mandy is intelligent enough to know the SI unit in both base, derived, and alternative formats for that quantity. So if they want to use momentum, all they do is type \momentum and put a number in curly braces. When they compile it, the units are right there. If they need a vector, all they do is say vector momentum and supply it a list of 3 numbers, and it gets typeset as a vector.
I've had a couple of my students wanting to turn in work in LaTeX, and I mentioned Mandy to them. Mm-hmm. So I'm very thankful for that package.
Well, that's
but
wonderful.
I don't know how much time you spent teaching LaTeX, because not all of my students know it.
I spend hopefully enough to show them how to do what they need to do. The issue is they don't practice it enough outside of class, and so they end up, for example, doing units in italics, which according to SI is a no-no. I probably need to do a little more tutorial type exercise with them. I wish I could somehow watch them at home and say, you need to sit down and practice with your LaTeX. But the students tell me that they much prefer using that over handwriting out their solutions. And plus, at the end of the semester, they have a ready-made library of all their solutions that they can then look back on.
I'm going to ease into it by making it a requirement for the lab reports in the fall, and then maybe expand from there.
Mm-hmm. I think Drew Morrison has done some things like that. So you might want to contact him as well. Oh, okay. Well, hang on. Let me just make sure my blog is up and running. That's disconcerting.
Well, thank you, Joe. I guess Jen should be next. Jen, are you still there?
Oh yeah, I'm still here. I just want to talk a little bit about what I'm doing for lab. I'm always looking for interactives that I can use in my classroom because I want to bring in evidence more. And if I could teach studio style, I would, but I don't really have the infrastructure for that. So I'm always looking for different interactive things for the students to use. And one of the big things I'm looking for is I want it to be, use the models, of course, that we use in class, but also for it to be interactive enough that the students can kind of change the different things about it and they can, you know, truly interact with the model. So, you know, the PhET things, those have been great, but I'm looking for lab for something a little different. Not only do I want the students to be able to interact with the materials, but I want there to be some sort of experimental error and uncertainty in it. So when I saw the Pivot Interactives, I was at APT in the winter and it was a workshop and I'm always a sucker for a workshop. So I said, oh, I'm gonna go. And so the thing about Pivot is that it is something that is online. So it's something that is easily accessible for the students. And it is something that they can change. So it's a purely interactive experience. So the videos have lots of different options for the students. And it's just the students are making their own measurements. So there is experimental error. So all of these are things that I thought was pretty good about it. I had been thinking about using it in the classroom and not really as a lab, but then, you know, we went online. And so I thought, well, this is going to be a good experience, I guess. I'll try to get the free trial of it. So I got the free trial, put some of my students into the classroom, and we tried it out. And let me show you a little bit about what ended up happening. Okay, so I'm going to go to Pivot. Okay, so this is when you go into Pivot, what it is that there are all of these different videos that you're going to end up seeing. So all of them, they're videos of different like experiments or situations or something like that. You can look for what you're looking for just by clicking physics, and then whatever topic area you want, you can pick whatever it is that you want to see. I'm going to show you one of the first ones that I did, which was on energy, because that was the first thing that we were looking for when we were doing, when we first went online. Because I was only about maybe, I don't know, a couple weeks into the school before we went online. So here's a nice one. This is an interactive about energy. Okay, so when you go in here, let me try to screen down here. There's this really nice video of a superconducting puck and it's sliding down a ramp. Okay, so this one, I didn't open the right one, but this one is one where they're asking the students to sort of predict what's going to happen. And they have different launch trials, and the students can go and then they can see what happens when he gives it this amount of speed. And then you can change it, okay, what happens when they give it this amount of speed. Okay? And on this part of it, the way it's set up is that the students can they have to make a guess, and they can pull down these different tools. So there's measurement tools, there's a level that they can use, there's something they can measure the height with. This is so that they can just figure out where the puck is at different points. There's a timer. There are horizontal rulers. All the rulers can spin, so if I needed them to be on an angle, they can do that. But the students in this interactive, they have to do the same things that they would do in class. They have to figure out where is the 0 point. So they have to figure out when you're measuring the height, where are they measuring it from? Right? They have to figure out how to measure the speed. And the best way to do this is to find out like a small interval, just like we would have done in class using the smart cards with the, not the smart cards, the ones with the flags on them, the old Pascal cards. So trying to figure out how much time it takes for that 10-centimeter flag to go through the photo gates. So they're doing the same kinds of things here, except that they're just doing it with the video. And it has a bunch of different options. So for this one, I had the other one where it was going down the hill. They had to start it at different places on the hill. They let it go down and they were measuring. Okay, so the videos look like this, and then there's a place for the students then to answer the different questions. Now, I wish I had picked the right one, but I didn't, because this one originally, I was just doing a good conservation of energy one, and it was, on this case, they were having the students make a graph. Now, I teach lots of different levels of physics, and one of them, graphing just was not going to be appropriate for them. So I thought, well, what, how am I going to make this so that it's going to work out for my students? Well, that's the other thing that's kind of fun about Pivot, is that you have this library of, whoops, I don't want to go to mine. You have this Pivot library that has all of these different videos on it, but that's only part of what it does for you. It's also what I think of as a learning management system for labs. So I can go in here, grab any of these and change them to how I want them to be. So here's my library. I have that same, not that one, but same kind of thing. But this is my video. So in mine, I decided, well, one thing I decided, I have lab tutorials and ask them to do stuff, to answer questions. So I added in those questions because I can do that in here. I can put in any questions that I want to put in there and put them in at the beginning. I put in, because I wanted them to put in KE and PE for just a simple question to see if they understood what it meant to measure kinetic and potential energy. And then I have them do the ramp interactive. And in this case, I only had these students make they just did kinetic and potential and what's the total energy to see if it was conserved. And I asked them to do like a percent error to see, how it's conserved. And for the most part, again, it worked out pretty well. It's not perfect, which, like I said, is what I'm looking for. The energy is not perfectly conserved. And the students were coming back to me, sending me messages saying, Dr. Snyder, I noticed that it was conserved when it was, when the height was really short, but when they were long heights, all of a sudden I'm getting much bigger percentages. And I thought, well, yeah, think about it. Why? Where is the error coming from? Where do you think you're losing energy to? And so it got into a whole discussion about friction and why you would be losing energy to friction, and why, when you have, more of that length, why it would be bigger than when it's, shorter. So that was great. The other thing that's kind of fun about this is that, so I have this, this particular lab that I have here. This is for my one of my classes. My other classes, I wanted something a little more. So I actually went in, sorry, I can't drag on this. I'm being stopped by too many things on my screen. Okay, I went in, and for one of my other classes, I actually added in one of their other videos. So this is the same one, but this is a little higher level class. I added in one of their other videos, which had a roller coaster. So they had just done this whole thing about finding energy, and then I added in the Pivot roller coaster one, and they tried to do the same thing but for a roller coaster, where they were trying to find, is energy conserved? And they gave us sort of the information for that. Okay, so the thing is, I can use these videos, but I can change things about it. Okay, the students can measure on the videos whatever I'm looking for, or whatever they're looking for, because I can just say to them, and this is what a lot of the labs that are in the library are, where it just says, okay, here's your apparatus, is energy conserved? What are you going to do? What measurements are you going to take? What kind of data are you going to take? And it can just let the students do whatever they want. It's really up to you how you organize it. And it's, again, relatively easy to do. The questions can be very open-ended. If you want the students to make graphs, there's a graphing thing in Pivot for them to do. If you don't, say you want to have them make graphs in Excel, they can make graphs in Excel and put them in to their Pivot lab report. So it's the other thing that's nice about it is it's everything is in one spot. So however I want to organize the labs, they're right here. This is where they turn their stuff in. The other thing that is kind of fun about it is that I told you before, I do things where I have the students do pre-lab activities. And I was having a hard time with it because in my pre-lab activities, I would have them usually go to an animation or something like that. And then because again, PhET is so awesome, I can actually embed my PhET animations right into Pivot. So when they come in, here's their, you know, beginning intro to waves. And look, here's my PhET animation that I use for that. And then I just ask them to, you know, use this. And then there it is. And now they're doing the same thing, but they're not so many clicks. And that's, you know, one of my colleagues says that's the big thing. You want to decrease the amount of clicking that the students are doing and trying to keep everything in one spot. Okay, so the thing about it is that you have all these videos and they're all at your disposal. You can organize them however you want. You can make it very specific, like I do for my 100 class, where I say, okay, you know, go in here and we're gonna see if energy is conserved. You need to make these measurements and then do these calculations. You can make it very open-ended and just say, okay, here's your apparatus, go at it. And then say, you need to write up and explain to me what you're gonna do. And they can do that. You can, again, add things and subtract. You can put in whatever you feel like putting in. And it's one of the things that I like about it. The other thing is that when you go to grade, the grading program is, you know, not overly crazy, but you can go in and you can grade the questions by question. So you can take in there and grade everybody's question number 1, and then grade everybody's question number 2. Or you can grade all of the labs separately, but everything is here on this particular site. And I don't know if you have this problem, but where I am on, I have sort of an issue with the students having all the same technology. For here, I don't have to worry about whether or not they have Excel or they have something to, you know, what they're gonna write in, because it's all right here. This is where all the editors are in, and this is where they're putting everything. So it makes it a little bit more seamless for me and for the students. So I think I hit everything. I don't know. Does anybody have any? Yeah. Oh, and I'm glad you said that, Chris, because actually that's what I was thinking about too. I've thought about actually using this for exams, because you may have noticed like that there are sometimes there are very interactive labs. Sometimes they're just some of the sort of demonstration type things that you might do. There was this picture of the bicycle train. I was thinking this would be a great way to do an exam problem, because I can ask this question about how the speed of the different parts of the bicycle wheel, and then they can make those measurements. That makes it a lot harder for them to look up answers because they have to measure what those things are. So they're going to be different depending on what it is that they're doing. So there are some of these that are scenarios that are typical to, you know, our end of chapter problems, but they're in real life. So the students could go in and make those measurements. And actually that would kind of help in terms of exam questions. Anyway, but I found that again, I used some other things for lab, but this is the most seamless in terms of making sure that everybody has access and making sure that they can, that it's easier to grade and that sort of business.
Jen, who is paying for the students? Are they paying themselves, or is the school paying for them?
In this case, somebody, I had the college pay for it. But the it's $10 per student, and as somebody pointed out to me, that's how much their lab manual costs. So you know, things like it's not too much, but I use OER. Everything that I have is free. So for me, I don't feel like this would be like a huge thing in terms of you know, in terms of cost. But yeah, right now I had the college paid for it, because I have classes, or not mine, but we're going to do classes in the summer, and all the seats that they bought are good till December. and they're not.
And do you know if they offer a site license, like if the school wants to buy an annual unlimited?
I don't think so. I think it's, again, it's you're buying seats, and the closest thing that they did to that is this thing where they're letting you buy through December. And I don't know if they'll do the same thing next year, but I know that this year that's how they're selling them, which is not a bad deal because I have 60 seats, but I've got 3 different semesters that are going to use them.
Thank you.
So you don't have to do any. So I guess my school, I wanted to use this option. I tried it out this semester, but we have to have a certain amount of hands-on labs. But in your state, you don't have that requirement.
For like, what do you mean, like in my class?
Yeah. So I mean, I couldn't use this as a lab replacement, which some people mentioned because there aren't enough. Because there has to be a certain amount of hands-on time where they're actually touching things, and then with this, you're not actually physically.
You know, I think. For me, I don't think the touching things is the part of the lab that's important.
Oh, no, I totally agree with you. I guess
Okay.
I wonder what state you're in where they're not making you use hands-on labs.
About whether, I'm sorry, say one more time.
Which state do you teach in?
What state do I teach in?
Yeah.
Oh, California.
Okay, I guess, so in Illinois, we have to have a certain amount of, that we can't, I would love to go with pivot. And do that,
No. Yeah,
I think it's
absolutely. Is this is like special dispensation? Are we going to be able to do this like for real always? Probably not, because because exactly. But for right now, yes.
We can't even get special dispensation for the fall. They want us to come in.
Oh, we do. They're continuing our agreements for the fall, mostly because all of our transfer partners are in the same boat. You know, that they all are having that same kind of problem. Everybody's got to go online. Yeah. But no, but originally, that was not really what I was looking for it to do. I wasn't looking for it to replace the lab, but now, yeah, I mean, this is a good replacement for what we would normally do in our labs.
Oh, Anthony. Oh, okay. It was waived for the summer as well. I didn't know that because we're having lab kits being, for whoever's teaching this summer, is ordering hands-on lab kits.
Yeah, we're not. We're off for the summer.
Well, thank you, Jan. I think I'm gonna deploy one of these polls so that it's getting to that point where you guys ready for that question? It's probably gonna be one that Theo is gonna find useful for later.
Well, we're waiting for everyone. Blanco here, camera's off. I just put a question in the chat. I'm curious, now we're doing online labs. Have we given up on the idea of students having a student lab partner? And I'm just curious if anyone's found any way for that to work. Because the social interaction sometimes and the team building, for some people, that's a very important element of doing a lab. And we seem to have lost that now.
Well, I'm going to have my students actually come in and do the lab together in the fall. I didn't do that this time, but I mean, some students did, and I'm going to have them work in teams because you're absolutely right, Phil. That was what I missed of lab. It wasn't the stuff, or it was having the students work cooperatively, and that's and I will have that in the fall. We'll do these labs, but we'll do them synchronously.
They are the results. Kind of seems like, what does other mean? Who answered other?
Sorry, now you can hear me. I I hit other because we didn't have a pass-fail. And the reason for that was interesting. It's because the grading system that the North Carolina Community College system uses doesn't provide for a pass-fail option. So that was nixed. So we were hamstrung there. So we had a no questions asked emergency withdrawal that could be used right up to the last day of class. And I think that was a good thing because some students realized that they were in over their heads and had been in over their heads. We did also have the option of an incomplete, but that wasn't an option for me because the incomplete would have to be removed over the summer, and I don't teach during the summer. So I think in one class I had about 6 out of 24, so about 25% of the students take advantage of that no questions asked emergency withdrawal. There were a couple in the physics class, but it was really just one section of astronomy that made noticeable use of it. So that was my other.
Thank you. I'm going to launch one final one.
You mean students evaluating the courses?
Yeah, exactly. Couple more people. Okay, good. I'm going to end this. Here are the results. Okay. Any questions about that, Paul? So our school did have evaluations, but they didn't really count for anything. It was just like, let's continue sending them out to the students, but we're not going to use them for anything because of the transition into online instruction. So I see we have 5 minutes. Do you guys have any more questions? I think we'll continue on a little bit, but I just want to make sure that we answer your questions before we've scheduled this for 1 hour and 30 minutes.
I forgot to ask about the auto grader. How good is that on the pivot? Do they just recognize the numbers put in, or is it actual sentences they recognize? If it was
the auto grader only works, I think, for the if you do multiple choice things. So those pre-lab activities, I have those on auto grade, but the actual number things, no, because well, it's lab, so you know there's a little bit of it. Yeah, that would be hard to do.
I asked them to put the couple of lines with a sequence of logical steps to get to the final value. And so the grading becomes really easy. It's not automatic, but you're just quickly seeing those things. And then you create your own quick little rubric. Oh, 3 if they have those all everything. 1 if they have just one, one line and it's not explaining everything. I don't know. Yeah, you still have to go through, but it actually is faster than you think. One thing that really did not work this semester was like the institution coming in towards the end of the semester saying, hey, you guys can get an incomplete anytime you want for anything, or because maybe if the teachers weren't being very kind with you, we are going to be kind with you in as an institution. and you can get W. But anyway, this announcement came disconnected from all of us and towards the end. So I still get all the students, some students replying now, oh, by the way, I want an incomplete. I said, yeah, well, you did everything. And so you cannot redo. That's not an incomplete. That's not, and things like that. So that didn't work. So hopefully this will quiet down and the school won't feel as the need to advertise things like that now.
Yeah, I know I was pretty strong on the idea of having a pass and fail option, but we never really got that in our college. But I felt like that was a good thing to have in terms of compassionate.
Yeah, our admin's philosophy was, you know, these students didn't sign up for online delivery, they signed up for seated delivery. And I had at least 1 or 2 students who had special accommodations due to things like social anxiety and so forth. And we were worried about how those students would do. Now, it turns out that they completed the course and passed. But we were told to, you know, be very considerate and compassionate for the students who, or the students for whom this new mode of delivery probably was not going to work for. And in my experience, the students who were engaged before remain engaged after the switch. The students who were not engaged before remained unengaged after the switch. So there was that very distinct persistence to all of this.
Out of 94 students that I had across the different sections that I taught, I think less than 5 or 6 picked the option of switching to an SU grade. Very few of them out of 94, so less than 10%. And some of them didn't really need it, but I guess they get a little concerned. They ended up with they could have had a B+, but they ended up with an S, which, as far as they're concerned, is neutral for their GPA. So one of them told me, I'm not sure between your class and I think he was taking Calc 3 or DFQ, and he wanted to bet all his money on the DFQ class. So he took an S on my class and went on to the other one. So.
I just have a quick question. You know, following up what Joe said about, like, you know, students didn't sign up for this. Is anyone now, like now that the start of like summer is kind of known, like no we're going to do it, maybe for fall, asking students or the college asking students that they need to have certain like technological requirements, like a web camera or a computer or whatever?
Well, our administration did that from the beginning, and we actually purchased Wi-Fi hotspots and deployed them both in our parking lots. Mm-hmm. And I understand we distributed some of them to other agencies around the county. I know the public schools here were deploying them in school buses that they would send out to different parts of the county. And I also happen to know that our admins are polling students for the fall to ask them if they would prefer seated or online or some sort of hybrid. I'm not sure how that's going to turn out. And I think we purchased some other Chromebooks as well. So yeah, we did try to help address some of the tech needs of some of the students, because we've got some pretty rural parts here that don't have reliable broadband.
Our college has already gave out almost 900 laptops to students who couldn't afford or didn't have a laptop. 2 of our parking lots are Wi-Fi hotspots by appointment and limited time as well.
I was going to say something about 300, but you guys have 900, so it's way more. So we have 300 laptops available, and at last count we heard 73 of them have been requested for the summer. And so the head of our IT department says, I have plenty of laptops, anybody wants one for the students. And also we do have the Wi-Fi in the parking lot as well. Ours is from, I think, 8 in the morning to 10 p.m. or something like this. and the students must remain in the car. They cannot step out.
This sort of invented a whole new concept, a Wi-Fi drive-in. I think maybe there's a marketing idea somewhere in there.
Yeah, download your file while you drive or something like that.
Question?
Can I ask a question not related to labs per se, but there is a lot of talk at our college. I'm in Utica, New York, and we are part of SUNY system. So there's a lot of talk about how we will get the CARE Act money, but then the governor of New York is saying that to balance the budget, there might be a cut in our funding. There will be a cut in our funding, it's not might. But that number could be anywhere between 10 to 50%. I just want to know what other colleges are hearing. Is there any cut in funding or any other concern like that?
I heard at least 20 to 30, I heard.
Well,
yeah, our president said 10 to 50.
I heard that the governor of Florida hasn't signed the budget yet, so it can go either way. And I think that's why he wants to reopen the beaches, because we won't have any money. If you guys don't come and visit Florida, we don't have any money. So please come to Florida.
In California, we're waiting for what we call the May revise for our governor.
Yeah.
We're expecting anywhere from 5 to 11% cut. But Shahida, I think the CARES Act funds are earmarked, so they can't be used for anything other than student aid and educational aid. So you might want to look into that if they're trying to spend it elsewhere.
No, they're not. They're only for students. So, but usually we get state aid and tuition and all those things. And just to ensure now that there won't be any layoffs, although there is no guarantee, all of us took a pay freeze. So all the faculty and staff are not getting any raise for next year. And I heard administrators are getting a pay cut also. I don't know.
The layoff statement was made in our last meeting with our president that depending on what the percentage cut is, there might be some layoffs. To add to all of that, we just passed a early retirement incentive, and 16 of our faculty took it, not physics, but total. So if they lay off anymore, we might be below our required number and get even penalized even more because they haven't committed to replacing all 16 faculty yet.
So I'm going to stop recording right now and we can continue chatting.